What a multi-layered truth that God spoke to a stick, an inanimate object, and it became a creature, a snake. A snake, like what Pharaoh had or wore on his crown. Normally, we are taught through the scriptures in Sunday school, in church, how Moses' snake, that was a rod, swallowed the snakes of the sorcerer, the magician, and the wise men. That's what we're normally taught about, because we're taught about the truth, that God has all power. But I started this series to wind us back about deception. So hello, my friend. And it's the fact that these three groups or classes of people were able to replicate three of the miracles that Moses did. And the fact that the Bible records it, we shouldn't just smoosh over it. Because these were deceptive, occultic, demonic replications, but they were real. They were real. They made snakes. They didn't make rubber snakes. Now, if we just stayed there, we would be lost. The question is, what is that lesson for us? What was left there? And I have been asking the question through my first video, if you missed it, returning back to my channel, A Place for Joy, and a YouTube short. What are you being deceived by? Pharaoh was deceived, but what are you being deceived by? So let's examine some things together, my friend. These three groups had three men. I'll call them three men, like how we say the three wise men when we really don't know whether it was a group. So just bear with me for now, because I want to make a point. I'm not saying that's accurate. It could have been more than three. But these three classes, sorcerers, magician, wise men, were able through secret arts, as I've said, to replicate what Moses did, which basically made Pharaoh say, what's the big deal? You know, your God did this, I can do this too. I can get someone to do this for me. What's interesting about that is how imitations and temporary power can dissuade, distract, deceive us from the God who is true and who was making himself in his time, manifesting himself for not only for Moses and the children of Israel to know that he was real, that he could hear, that he was there, that he was the deliverer, but for Pharaoh to get to meet him. Let me tell you about Pharaoh and an important backstory that we fail to connect about him. But first, I have to connect it to a story that I want you to check out for yourself, because part of deception is we don't take the time to research information for ourselves. And right now, I'm talking about the Bible. Jesus actually exhorted the people. He said, look into the word, the Tanakh in the Old Testament. It testifies of me. Go back to it. Look, you'll find me. The word says, if you truly seek for me, God, you will find me. He said, ask. So are we asking the one true God? Are we seeking so that we're not deceived by secret arts? Let's talk about Pharaoh. This Pharaoh wasn't the first Pharaoh. There was a Pharaoh before him. That Pharaoh in the Bible had a relationship with Joseph, who had a relationship with the one true God. It was through Joseph that the children of Israel had entered Egypt, coming to look for sustenance or bread from the famine that they were experiencing in their land. Go back. It's a beautiful story. Beautiful story. I like Joseph, one of my favorite characters in the Bible, one of my favorite people, not a character, one of my favorite people. And Pharaoh respected him because he knew that Joseph knew God. Pharaoh had his gods, but he respected Joseph. And because he respected Joseph, he respected his people. So during the time they were there, the children of Israel had a good life. You all know by now how things can change, right? And can shift with seasons. While Joseph was alive, and even maybe some years after, maybe even a decade after or more, his people thrived. They did well in Egypt. They were not even really in the main parts of Egypt. And the reason why I know that is because when Joseph brought in his brothers, he said, let's let you all be out where the flocks are, because Egyptians do not like shepherds. And I'm mentioning that because here comes Moses now as a shepherd back into this Pharaoh. But that was a historical fact that Joseph, because of God, had interpreted the dream of the Pharaoh and saved the Egyptian people. That was part of their history. So in my YouTube short, I said that Pharaoh was deceived because of a lack of knowledge. Pharaoh was living and comfortable because of something that God had done in the past that he had never bothered to research and make a connection with. That is critically important. If you check another story in the Bible in Daniel with Nebuchadnezzar, I think you've heard about Nebuchadnezzar. Have you heard about his son Belteshazzar, who was using the temple, what they served, the cups and the holy things from the temple to have to throw a party, a wild party, and then the hand that wrote on the wall? Do you know that he sent for the same Daniel that had also talked to his father to come to find out after he called the sorcerers, the magicians, and the wise men, and they couldn't read what was on the wall? And he called Daniel because his wife was like, during your father's time, there was this man of God who did. Read it, Daniel 5. And so he comes to read what the writing on the wall that none of these sorcerers could read. And Daniel tells this son, he said, why don't you know? Don't you know what happened to your father? Why don't you know your history? Why don't you know what God already did? So that's the question for us. Are we aware of what God has done for us? Because as creatures, we forget very easily. I don't know about you. I forget very easily about what God has done. What has God delivered you from that you've forgotten? Or your family to get you to where you are? What has God done that you have forgotten, that you are accepting an imitation of who he is, or imitating things? And you know, one of the things that get us to that point is when we are so comfortable with what we consider is our life, because God has been so kind, so good, so merciful, delivered us from so many forms of danger and foolish mistakes, that we get comfortable on our throne. And like Pharaoh, we're like, I can substitute that. I can ignore that. I can imitate that. Yeah. Let me read something to you. I want you to check out Daniel 5 for yourself, but I would like to read something to you, and it's long, and I would like to end like this. I would love to go into more, but your time is valuable, and I want to respect that. And I'm looking at the time and know that I'm going off. This is from 1 John 2, beginning with verse 15. Do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. It's hard to not love the world that we see. It's difficult because that's what we know. That's what Pharaoh knew. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eye, the pride of life, it is not of the Father, but is of the world. and the world is passing away and the lust of it. But he who does the will of God abides forever. Little children, it is the last hour. And as you have heard that the Antichrist is coming, even now many Antichrists have come, by which we know that it is the last hour. This is something the Holy Spirit connected for me, and I said, oh God. You know, when Jesus was driven into the wilderness by the Holy Spirit to be tempted, remember when Satan said, and he was hungry, 40 days and 40 nights, that's a lot. That's a lot. Most of us, me included, 40 minutes is a challenge, spending time to get to know God. Or if you're hungry and you become distracted and you're like, I'm dying of hunger. Not true, not true. None of God's mercy has stopped us from facing that for the most part, most of us. Okay, coming back. Do you know that when Satan said to Jesus, you can turn this stone, let's call this a stone for now. It's not, it's a nice glass heart. It's a gift someone gave me. When Satan said, you can turn this stone into bread, he was trying to get Jesus not to follow the will of God, but to follow his flesh, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eye, the pride of life, the things that are passing away, rather than depending on God. He was trying to get Jesus to use an imitation to satisfy his flesh at that time of hunger, which was very real. The imitation, you can do an imitation. That was not the way to get the bread. And God had humbled himself, made a body of flesh to be like us. We can't go around turning stones into bread. So the real man at that time, it was like, can you resort to a different power? Because some of these powers are secret arts, rather than following through with the will of God, to take on imitation to satisfy your flesh, to be comfortable, to forget that it's the same God who formed you that can feed you. And at this time, this is where he put you. He knows where you are. He knows how he can get bread to you. I need to stop. I hope you got that connection with the deception. He was trying to get Jesus to be deceptive, as Pharaoh was in trying to replicate rather than trying to get to know the one true God. I hope this helps you. It's for us to examine ourselves, to find areas that we have used to replace who the true and living God is in our life, because we've become so comfortable with substitutions. See you soon, and peace.